Um, Actually, I grew up in a very public family. My father was a member of Congress for 25 years. But it wasn't until I was 19 that I had my first, what I would call, public experience that really touched me and set me on a certain course. And the summer when I was 19, I joined the Quebec Labrador Mission Foundation and was flown up to a small fishing village on the upper St. Lawrence River called Mutton Bay in a little seaplane, and dropped off in a little fishing village to teach the children how to swim. Nobody knew how to swim, so there were tragedies every year and drownings. Everybody in this town lived in houses that were prefab, that had no electricity or running water, but had all the trappings of sort of normalcy. But it was a very, very simple town. And it was the first experience I had where I was there totally to do something for other people. And I found that I really loved it. And I found that that way of living was natural and comfortable and gave me back more than I gave. So even at 19, I could feel from that experience that I wanted that component in my life, always. So from then on, I really made sure that I was doing something on that level of other-oriented, focusing on the needs of other people, no matter what it was I chose.
And you found that really brings you the greatest happiness in your life.
It certainly brings me a depth of happiness that I want to keep close.
I was raised from the time I was a child in a Jewish family, and my father served in the Second World War. And the issues of that war and that time were very much a part of the house in which I grew up. So I remember that the Holocaust was very real to me and something that we talked about often. And I felt from the time that I was young that I really wanted to make the world a place in which something like that would never happen. So I kind of had that kind of a spirit about my life from the time that I was very young. But you know, when you say defining moment, they happen at different times. And one that came to mind actually is when my son, our first son, is named Jesse, and when he was born, I have this memory, I guess it was maybe 2 or 3 days after his birth. We had brought him home from the hospital, and you know, we put him in his crib, and we were sleeping in the room. And I think that night we must have been awoken maybe 4 or 5 times. And each time we'd get up and check him, and we'd both get up and hold him, and I'd feed him, and then Dave would hold him on his chest. And it was interesting because at the end of that night, I remember I turned to my husband and I said, I don't think I ever loved anyone before. And I was thinking, you know, how many times, as much as we say we love people, and I always thought of myself as a very loving person, how much do we really sacrifice for others, for the dreams and the things that we believe in, to give? And so it was really a defining moment, actually.
So you felt a new depth of love.
Yeah, there was
possible.
a different, it was like all of a sudden love was taken to a different level. And I think that was a defining moment.
Wow, that's very, very interesting.
It affected me, not just with my children, but really in my life.
Alexa, tell us about the Women's Federation for World Peace and the types of project which both of you are involved in.
Okay. WWP USA has 5 program areas. Women of Faith, Benefits for Schools of Africa, Women's Middle East Peace Initiative, NGO Networking, and Interracial Sisterhood Project.
Okay.
So each one of these areas we have defined why we think it's important, and then we move it forward through programs.
Okay.
Programs provide people a way to meet us, to get to know us, to become more involved, and eventually actually take a leadership position.
Great.
We explain WFWP in terms of the founding spirit. The founding spirit is 3 points. The first is a commitment to strengthen the family.
Okay.
Because we believe the family is the cornerstone for peace in the world. Not an individual, not an institution, but the family.
Okay.
So the breakdown of the family is a very serious issue, a serious impediment to peace. Number 2, we refer to service for others in the spirit of living for the sake of others, as exemplified in WFWP's service projects in 39 countries.
Okay.
And number 3, we refer to peace and reconciliation activities, centering on our signature project, the Bridge of Peace ceremony, and our work with the United Nations.
Okay, can you tell us more about those two, the Bridge of Peace and
Bridge of
the
Peace?
work with the United Nations?
Yeah, the Bridge of Peace ceremony is something very dear to all of us. 1995 and 96, we did a very unique series of programs in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II. And over a 2-year period, we created 20,000 pairs of sisters, Japanese and American.
Wow.
So before this project started, we were trying to think, how can we bring them together? What is the vehicle we can use to help them become pairs of sisters? And a couple of sisters had this vision for a bridge. So that's what we used. And actually for those 2 years, we had custom-made bridges for each one of those cities. And the Bridge of Peace ceremony involves 2 women or men or children or families beginning at the ends of the bridge, facing one another, coming, bowing to acknowledge the wrongs done symbolically toward one another or the groups we represent.
From World War II.
Well, the bridge in general toward anything, but in that particular program in World War II, and then coming closer and embracing. So first the sort of the repentance and then the embrace.
Okay.
And what we found, to our surprise, was that people had profound experiences of leaving whatever their baggage was at the beginning of the bridge, so that when they actually embraced, they were meeting that person with a fresh heart and a fresh mind, like a sister. For some people, it was the first time they might have ever thought they could have that kind of even moment with someone so different from them. So from that 2-year project, we've actually taken the bridge all over the world and used it in every possible, what we call enmity situation. German and Jews, Korean and Japanese, blacks and whites.
To promote reconciliation.
To promote reconciliation. The bridge can't change anything. All it can do is give people a moment where they see and feel differently. Just a moment, like a window. If it's deep enough, it touches you in a way that you want to capture it and make that real over time.
Wow.
We did it in Israel in May 2004 with Arabs and Israelis, and that was a very deep experience. So we found it works anywhere. It has a magic in it, and we've used it a great deal, still to this day.
Very
Most of our
interesting.
programs contain a component of the Bridge of Peace ceremony.